Welcome to the Nick Blevins Family Ministry Podcast. Our goal is to help you maximize your church's potential. You'll hear from top leaders in children's, student, and family ministry about the principles and practices they use. Now here's your host, Nick Blevins.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Family Ministry Podcast. I'm Nick, I'm your host, and if you're new to the podcast, the name just means that we talk about all kinds of topics under the family ministry banner, meaning it might be preschool ministry, elementary, middle school, high school, might be something that spans all of those ministries. And we have a great interview in store for you today as I talk with Justin Herman. But before we jump into that interview, I want to tell you about something that if you're listening to this the week it comes out, that you might want to take advantage of. And it's the Volunteer Playbook Group. This is a group that I started last year, so 2017. It's basically a 10-week course to help ministry leaders recruit more volunteers. And in the midst of learning how to recruit better, you also work on your ministry. Everything related to volunteerism, from onboarding to training to structure, vision, culture, everything that you need to make your ministry great, especially as it relates to volunteers. So it's a 10-week course. A video is released every week. There's a private Facebook group. There's individual coaching that we can do together. But my favorite part of the group probably is the fact that everybody takes the journey together. So you learn how to be a better volunteer recruiter, but you also share all the resources you create. So as soon as you become part of the Volunteer Playbook Group, you get access to other people's volunteer job descriptions, handbooks, orientation documents and processes, and training documents and all of that kind of stuff, which I think is really helpful. I just love sharing resources with ministry leaders. But the next round of the Volunteer Playbook Group is going to be a summer session. It's special. It's going to be 25% off the normal price, but it starts July 2nd. So, or rather, it starts July 9th. So registration closes July 2nd. So if you happen to be listening to this the week that it comes out, registration for the summer session of the Volunteer Playbook Group will be open until Monday at midnight, and then it'll close and we'll launch that group. So if that's something you might be interested in, if you want to recruit more volunteers this summer or just take some time to overhaul and improve your ministry, that group might be for you. You can check that out in the show notes or just at volunteerplaybook.com. But you might want to check out the show notes just for my notes and links and everything for my conversation with Justin. We talk about kind of the middle school dynamic, like what does it take to be successful in a middle school ministry? But I can tell you right now that it really applies to any ministry, preschool, elementary, middle school, high school, young adults. The things he talks about with some tweaks apply to every ministry, and I love what he shares. We also talk about long-term strategy development, and we use an example where they created basically a global outreach strategy for middle school ministry. And so we kind of talk about what that looked like, to launch from the beginning. And then we wrap up talking about parent ministry and the three pillars that Justin sees that are crucial to ministering to parents, which again, we talk about it in a middle school context, but I think it applies across the board. So it's a great conversation. Again, you can get the show notes at nickblevins.com/episode 109. But let's go ahead now and jump into my conversation with Justin Herman. Well, I'm talking with Justin Herman today. Welcome to the Family Ministry Podcast, Justin.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. This is going to be great.
You bet. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, and your church, which is in a transition here right now. So give us an update on all that.
Yeah, so I'm Justin. I live in Southern California with my wife. I have two kids. They're both absolutely awesome. One of my sons has autism. The other one's a typical kid. And they're both just absolutely incredible. And I work at a church right now called Mariners Church in Southern California. It's a large, we have a couple campuses around. And then I'm just moving, actually transitioning from this church, which is an incredible church, to church in Riverside called Sandals Church, which is also an incredible church. They have like 9 campuses there, and I'll be overseeing youth ministry there. I'll be overseeing junior high and high school across all the campuses, and I'm excited for it. So that's next week.
Awesome. And you're going to oversee junior high and high school there. At Mariners, yeah. What was your role specifically?
At Mariners, I oversaw junior high specifically at the Irvine campus. So it's the largest of all the campuses, and I oversaw junior high here and the staff and all the things that went with it.
Yep. Which I didn't mention this before we recorded, but I got to see Mariners Church campus in December this past year.
Really?
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It just makes every other church campus. I feel bad for where I am and everybody else pretty much. It's
oh
beautiful.
Man, yeah. I hear that. I've heard that over the years so many times. And the campus is beautiful. But in the end, it's a tool, and it's a tool that everyone has a different tool. Ours is in Newport, but sometimes it's more of a headache than you probably expect. But
I can see why.
Thanks so much. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, and one of my favorite things, and this might have been in your middle school area, was the double stacked basketball courts.
Yes, the double-decker basketball court. Yeah, it's in the student center. It's pretty awesome. That was
a pretty cool idea. I'm like, that's great. It's not as tall as you would think. It's not like each one is as tall as a normal gym. So it fits in a smaller area than you thought. I thought that's a really good idea. That's cool.
Yeah, you can do a lot in there. It's really good. Basically a big cage, and kids love it, and we love it. So it's fun.
Yeah,
it was
cool.
So, yeah.
So we're going to talk some junior high ministry, and I'm sure a lot of this will apply to high school, and you're going to do that. When you make this transition, you're going to take some of these principles applying to both worlds.
Definitely.
But in your years leading junior high ministry, what are some of the key things that you found that make it, can make it dynamic and successful? And it's a tough ministry area. I always say I think student ministry is one of the hardest ministries to lead in a church. Middle school certainly fits in there, lots of transition stuff going on. So how can somebody be successful leading in middle school ministry?
Middle school ministry is just so unique because it's this big, chasm of change and growth and maturing and development. If you've ever taken a picture of a 6th grade kid and compared it to their picture as an 8th grade kid, they look completely the change is so visible. Literally visible. You can see the change. But if you did the same thing with a 9th grade kid to a 12th grade kid, you don't see the change as much. It's so obvious during those junior high years. Their bodies are changing and their minds are changing, and how they process information is changing. And having a junior high ministry, and which we've been able to do at Mariners while I was here, being able to have a junior high ministry that didn't operate around those changes, we operated alongside those changes. To me, operating around those changes is, those changes are happening, let's do the best we can. Operating alongside those changes is the ministry is going to reflect where a kid is developmentally. The things we offer to parents will match the phase their child is in. How we do small groups, how we do camp, how we do fun will match what they can understand, grasp, and not dumbing it down, but in a language that they get based on where they are in their development. So we were able to operate a ministry alongside where students were. I always tell my staff 3 things when it comes to a really great junior high ministry. And I would say the thing about a high school ministry. Maybe it's a little different in some of these, but the system space is the same. You got to make sure your ministry is fun. You got to have a fun ministry. And fun doesn't mean funny, ha-ha, and it doesn't mean it's fun. You're just giving stuff away for free, because kids will eventually stop showing up for free Bose headphones and gift cards. That stuff's going to run out, and when that stuff runs out, the kids run out. So a fun ministry where they can be real, it's a relevant place, it's authentic, they can feel like they belong there, that they're part of something, that their friends are there, that they're welcome there the way they are. They don't have to change in order to be there. It's fun. Someone knows their name. That's fun when someone knows your name. It doesn't have to be the pastor, a leader, someone, but someone knows who they are. You got to have a ministry that's fun, that connects with them, that keeps them engaged. People say that students have an attention problem. They have a short attention span. Just what it is. I know maybe it's not popular to say, but I just don't believe that, because they have a great attention span. I've watched them play Fortnite for 5 hours in a row.
That's true.
I've watched them sit on their phone through an entire service. I've watched them play flag football on the field for an hour straight. They don't have an attention problem. They have a problem with making sure that their attention is being kept. And by the way, that's our problem. That's the church's problem. Making sure that we are the ones keeping their attention. If they start to drift off, it's because we're not holding their attention. And nobody wants to face that. No one has the courage to just say, if my students aren't paying attention, it's because I'm not holding their attention. They just want to blame the students. Oh, they're young and they have an attention span problem. So it has to be fun. You have to have a fun ministry that connects with them. Number 2, it's all about leaders. Any problem you have, I tell my staff this all the time, any problem you have, and I'm sure there's problems that you can have that don't fit this, but every problem you can have that I've at least seen so far in youth ministry can be solved with more and better leaders. I say it all the time. Any problem you have, if you have a greeting new kids problem, if you have a kids sitting alone problem, if you have a kids aren't connected problem, if you have a kids aren't serving problem, if you have no one showing up at their school campus for their Bible club, their Young Life, or their whatever, any problem you have can be solved with more and better leaders. Not just more leaders, like not just more people there, more warm bodies, not just better. So we only have a few leaders and they're all really great, but there's only a few. You got to have more and better leaders. And you got to have partnership with parents. That's the third thing. Especially in junior high ministry, like this unique phase where they're coming out of kids ministry and they're ready, kids are ready to be done when they're getting out of kids ministry. I don't know if kids ministry people want to hear that, but they just are.
I think they know. They're aware. Okay, they see the attendance.
They get it. And it's totally true. And a really good children's pastor wants to partner with the junior high ministry to make it successful. A selfish kids pastor, and I know many selfish kids pastors, they want to make VBS the biggest thing on earth, and they want to make their I believe, moments, that a 6-year-old gives as this most significant thing. Here's the thing. I have kids, okay? When they're 6 years old and they look at me and they say, I want to put my faith in Jesus. I'm a pastor, okay? I'm going to be for that, but I'm also going to be realistic. That maybe as a 6-year-old, maybe they're not ready to understand what the big decision is of following Jesus. Maybe they don't understand everything that goes with this lifelong commitment. They get the idea of he forgive me for my sins. And kids people, sometimes they just drive me nuts. Really good kids people.
Some of them might be listening. Some might be listening right now.
You can tell them to email me.
But they're all really good. Yeah, they're all really good though. Obviously.
I have a feeling the really good ones are the ones that listen to your podcast.
Of course.
And luckily, I've had a chance to work with a few really good ones over the years. And I remember the church I worked at before I worked at Mariners. There was a gal I worked with. Her name was Karen, and she was absolutely incredible. She made sure that we were invited into kids ministry a ton. She made sure that we were part of things. But she knew what I didn't know at the time as much. She knew the importance of parents. So she impressed upon me the importance of parents, that parents in kids ministry are hands-on. And as they move to junior high, while the kids may be excited to get out of out of kids ministry to junior high, parents are still nervous. They're not sure. They're not sure they want their 6th grade daughter, being in a room with a bunch of 8th grade boys. Like, how does it work? Is it safe? What do you guys do there? Can they just go to the bathroom whenever they want? Can they leave the room whenever they want? Like, are we still doing check-in tags and check-out tags? So parents still have a ton of questions, and they're looking at this sweet little kid in 6th grade, and they're innocent and the whole thing. And it's like, man, you just don't even know what you're in store for. Like, they're going to start talking back to you soon. They're going to start asking, questioning what you say and what you've said. Like, it's going to be a thing. So I always tell our people that to have a great junior high ministry is to make sure that parents are cared for, they're informed. And I could talk about parent ministry a bunch. Maybe we will a little bit later. But those are the 3 big things. Fun is happening, the more and better leaders, and a great parent ministry.
Well, I definitely want to talk about the parent stuff later, because I do think there's a tendency, even in the culture right now, where there's a greater emphasis on parent partnership in church, there's a tendency for that to still die off in the middle school, high school years. But before we do that, give me some handles for fun. So you talked about what it's not, kind of what it feels like, but specifically, how did you create some of that fun atmosphere at Mariners, and what will you do, as you're at Sandals?
Yeah, here's a couple things. This is really easy stuff. The biggest trick in ministry is that you don't have to be like insanely creative with the big stuff. You just have to be really good at getting the simple stuff done right. Like, you don't have to come in with this new innovative strategy and this breathtaking, family ministry concept or student ministry concept. That sounds maybe cool on a blog or on a podcast, but the truth is that if you get the simple things right, like, you'll be an all-star to kids, and that's what matters. So when it comes to creating fun in junior high, at least what we've done, it's really simple stuff. Number 1, know what the plan is when a new kid shows up. Nobody wants to show up and feel like they're a nuisance. You know how you feel when you're in a new sense? You show up and it's like you don't know where to go, where to stand, and then you're thinking to yourself, am I standing in the right place? Am I doing the right thing? I don't know what I should be doing. I feel like I'm in the way. Like maybe I shouldn't come here next time. I mean, and a kid will go through that like really, really quick. So to make youth ministry fun, you have to know what you're going to do when new kids show up. What's the plan when new kids show up? You know what's really fun? When you show up somewhere and it feels like they've been waiting for you. You know what I mean? You show up and it's like, and it's your first time there, but it seems like they've been expecting you because they're excited to see you and they have a plan for what's going to happen as you're walking in the door. That's really fun. You know what else is really fun? Number 2, knowing what your plan is when kids are gone. So some of that speaks to the metric side and the tracking side of how we track our youth ministries. But you know what's really cool? Like this is like the coolest thing in the world. This is so fun to me. When a kid gets a postcard in the mail that says, hey, we missed you. We noticed you weren't here. We missed you. I hope everything's going great. When a kid gets that, even if they just missed because they had sports that weekend, so they went and they had a baseball game, whatever, it doesn't matter why they missed. The fact is that you noticed that they missed and that there's a plan for noticing when kids are gone. It doesn't matter how big or small the ministry is, that there's software to cure all of that. So, and that's the thing that boggles my mind. And this may sound more aggressive than I want it to, but it boggles my mind because if people who sit there in an office and they're like, I just don't know what to do. How do we figure this out? And it's like, bro, like, are you kidding me right now? Like, go log on to the internet, buy some software, buy an app, input their info, and it's done. You can do it it's a problem you can solve in 39 seconds. It's so easy. And that's one of those things where it's so easy to get it right. But when you get it wrong, you're leaving a lot of chips on the table if your goal is to create a really fun experience for junior high kids. I'd probably say the third thing is we take it easy on the rules on things. Like we're mellow about rules. We're not, cell phone police. We're not bathroom cops. We don't have a list of rules hanging in the room of all the things kids have to do. Dude, they get it. They get a ton of that. They get a load of that at school. Their family has rules. Now, I'm not saying it's chaos. I'm not saying that, it's like anarchy, but it's a controlled chaos that they're there and we know what our plan is. So we come prepared with our plan and we give the flexibility for them to be themselves. If you're having fun just sitting with your friends and you're talking during the game time and you're not paying attention, maybe it's because you don't care about the game that we're playing. That's totally cool. You're connecting with your friends. That's fun. That's awesome. Like we're winning if you feel you can be comfortable coming to church and hanging out with your friends. And I know that may sound unpopular because it's like, no, we want them paying attention. We want them totally dialed in. At the end of the day, I want them to get a little bit from God's word. I want something they can take into their week and, have that impact their week somehow. But I'm willing to give a little bit on game time or announcements or introduction. Like as long as it's not like wreaking havoc in the entire room, like being mellow on the things you can be mellow about, which for some people, everything's different. But if you can be mellow on some things to allow them to have a good time in a real way, like a way that makes sense to them, then you're going to have a fun youth ministry. Something that people are going to want to show up to.
Which, by the way, adults do the same thing in service too, right? Like they're not paying attention during some kind of opening or announcement or whatever.
Could you imagine if an usher came by and they're like, "Hey, get off your cell phone"? Like, could you imagine?
You probably wouldn't be back. Yeah.
Like you would. Yeah, you wouldn't be back. Like that would be completely insane. Like you would never do that to an adult. And we put it under the umbrella of, oh, well, they're young, so we're teaching them. What are we teaching them exactly? That when you come here, you have to be different than how you are out there. Because if out there, you like playing some games on your phone and texting your friend, like you like posting selfies, like with your friends if that's you, great. We want you to be you here at church. It doesn't mean you walk in the door and you got to put your cell phone away and be someone you're not, because then you've created an inauthentic experience, and kids do not want that, especially Generation Z. When the key word for Generation Z is authenticity, and yet we create programs around the idea of them fitting into who we think they should be or what we think they should do, we as adults thinking we're clever are completely missing the mark. And this generation is telling us that by their attendance, their involvement. It's so clear, but I think we miss it so often.
So tell me about, I'd love to hear what you did at Mariners, what you'll probably implement at Sandals if there isn't something already. What did you do to welcome the first-time kid, to help them not feel that, what you were talking about? And then what did you do to follow up with with students who missed? And did you do it after 1 week, 2 weeks? I'd love to hear about both of those processes you had in place.
Super simple. Couple of things. Kid shows up. They fill out a card. Usually they come in with their parent. If they don't, they come with a friend. They fill out a card. We take the card. We put the card into our database system that week. We hand the kid a gift, like a first-time gift thing. Sometimes it's a bottle with a T-shirt in it. Sometimes it's a little bag just filled with stuff. And we give it to them and we connect them. If they're there with a friend, then they're good. If they're not there with a friend, we connect them to one of our adult leaders or one of our student leaders to sit with during service. And that's kind of like their one-on-one buddy, for that service. And they go and they enjoy and they do the whole thing. So super simple, but the little quick thing was getting their information. That was key for us because then that week we were able to email the parents and welcome them to the church, send the kid a postcard, let them know that we're happy that they showed up and we hope they show up again. And then we put their stuff in the system. So the next time they come and they check in, it'll be there. And if they don't come and they don't check in again, we're going to see it kind of build up in that reservoir pool of people that haven't checked in a while, and we'll be able to reach back out to them. We keep those cards, and every month we reach out with another postcard or an email saying, hey, you came in the month of May, the best month of the year, and we're so happy that you showed up, and we hope you show up again, and, blah, blah, blah. When a kid misses, it's the same thing because they check in, we have the list, and we can reach out to those kids that weren't there and send them a postcard and say, hey, we noticed you weren't here. Whatever you were doing, we hope you were having a blast, and we want you to know you were missed. And if anything's going on, you want to reach out to us, we'd love to talk to you. And sometimes we do have people reach out hey, we actually weren't there because someone passed away. We weren't there because we were going through a big family deal. We weren't going to say anything, but thanks for reaching out and, do you think you could help or, give some counsel or whatever? So it actually creates this open door with families, which is really, really good. And then we have the pool that builds up a kid that's missed 3 weeks in a row. And then we're able to reach out to them again and say, hey, you haven't been here in 3 weeks. What's going on? And that sometimes is more like a phone call, something that's more targeted to parents. Hey, what's going on? Have you guys moved? Or, you still jumping around? Is sports being crazy? And it just gives us more opportunity to help and support the family. So it's not the most insanely detailed thing, but you don't have the most insanely detailed plan. You have to have a plan that works that you can regularly do. The most complex plans that look really cool and innovative and awesome tend to be the hardest ones to implement on a week by week basis. The ones that are simple, easy, you can just repeat it over and over and over again. It's consistent. You're going to find a lot of health from that. And I like that. And then we just send kids postcards on their birthday. Or every month we run a list of the kids who have a birthday that month. We send them all a postcard saying happy birthday. They're all handwritten. They're all signed. We send it off. Done deal.
Awesome. Is all of that staff driven, or do you get small group leaders involved in there somewhere, volunteers involved somewhere with the follow-up or the birthday card or whatever?
Yeah. So when it comes to the birthday card, that's a staff thing we send. When it comes to the initial follow-up, initial email, all that stuff is on the staff side. And part of that's because we have a staff and it's a really good deal and we love doing it. So our life group system is different than just our overall general weekend. We don't do small groups on the weekend. So we'll do our whole, weekend deal. And the goal is to put kids in the life groups. When a kid's into a life group, a lot of that weight then falls on the leader for the 7, 8, 10 kids that are in that group, and they'll be the ones to send out birthday cards. They send out their own birthday card though, and to be honest with you, that birthday card 10 times more valuable than the staff one. They're the ones who are sending the card or the text. We don't text a lot of our students. We have a texting system, but we're not sitting there personally texting 400 or 500 kids, but a small group leader is going to be able to text 10 kids at a time, and that's their 10 kids. So on the big picture scale, a lot of it's staff driven for the weekend side, but when we get to life groups, that's all life group driven. They have the responsibility of those 10 kids that are in their group.
Real quick, what mass text system do you use and do you like it?
Trumpia, and I love it. Very easy. I like it. That's what the church uses. Trumpia is great, and they pay for it, and yada yada yada. But it's awesome. Cool.
Well, let's talk about strategy development, but specifically around you implemented a global outreach strategy in the ministry that didn't exist. So in some ways, we'll get to hear about what that looks like, because I know a lot of youth leaders want to know about how they can do a better job taking students on trips or Or maybe they're going to be like, we're going to talk through here, and they want to build it from scratch like it doesn't exist. So walk us through that. Help us learn the strategy development part, but in the context of this global outreach thing that you created there.
Yeah, it's a really big thing. Global outreach is a part of our church, part of Mariners, a part of the DNA of Mariners Church. And we had a thriving global outreach department. And I wanted to start doing that. I wanted to start giving students the chance to experience the global world. Now, part of that is something that I just felt like I just had this spidey sense, ministry pastor, youth pastor sense that something was changing in culture, that was moving away from just them going and doing to them going and experiencing. I was reading some stuff from Orange. I was having conversations with kids. I was reading some like really early research stuff, some documents about the next generation. And I just got this sense that moving toward experience and relationship was better than moving toward more doing. And there's a place for doing, going to Mexico, building the house. We do that stuff. But there needed to be a new space for how we engaged relationships in the global world. And there was nothing like that, at least for junior high at the time. There's like stuff like that in other departments, but nothing like that in junior high. So the first thing I did when I have this crazy idea, like most of everyone does when they have a crazy idea, they kind of put it together, maybe a little proposal or something. They go talk to their boss about it, share with them, I got this idea. What do you think? And I won't lie, when I first brought it to my boss, it was greeted with a lot of hostility. They did not like the idea. The idea of sending students to, another part of the world was very scary to them, very nervous. They didn't think parents would get on board with that. And at the time, our high school ministry was taking students to Haiti, and I want to take students to Africa. And the feeling was immediately that if we take students to Africa in junior high, it won't give them anything to look forward to when they get to high school going to Haiti. Now, the problem with that is a completely backwards perspective of what engaged in the global world looks like. When you look at the global world, and this is just a side note, when you look at a global world as a vacation destination instead of a field of relationships to be had, then you've already missed the concept of what a healthy global outreach looks like. Because if global outreach to you is, where are we going on a mission trip? Man, let's go somewhere like tropical and awesome, like where we can like hit some, like if you view it as a vacation spot, like as a spot that's like, well, it needs to be attractive and exciting. No. Anywhere in the world, relationships are attractive and exciting. So you might say, well, why do you need to go anywhere then? Why don't you just go down the road? Yeah, you can go down the road. But more times than not, when God takes you somewhere, when you go somewhere, 9 times out of 10, you don't come back the same. You come back with a different perspective, a different, worldview, a different culture feel. And that's an important thing to get people out of their context. So it was greeted with a lot of hostility. Now, this was like 3 years ago. 3 years ago, I wanted to do this. And so it got to know we can't do it. So I had to figure out what the plan was going to be to pull this thing off. And that is what started the 3-year-long strategy that wrapped up in last April when we actually took students to Uganda, the 3-year-long strategy in order to get us there. And everyone does strategy differently. Sometimes you have a strategy that is like, 2-day strategy. I have a strategy of going to my favorite restaurant on Friday night. And here's my strategy. I'm going to call them and make a reservation. I'm going to get in my car. I'm going to drive there. I'm going to bring money with me. And I'm going to execute this strategy flawlessly. And 9 times out of 10, you can do that perfectly. And that's a quick, easy turnaround strategy. Some strategies take a longer time to implement because it's not just about you doing, it's actually about the trust you build with the different key players who are at the table. So for us in junior high, we weren't doing anything with the global world at the time. I just saw this as a need and was like, we need to do something, but we weren't doing anything. So there was a lot of unknowns. There was a lot of broken trust with our global outreach department and some departments at our church who treated them kind of more like a travel agency than a ministry partner. And that was a huge problem. So already we were starting at a disadvantage. We had no global experience and we didn't have any trust built. So what did we do? Well, we started out slowly. And knowing that the goal was to get to Uganda one day, we started out slowly. We looked at what was offered that we could do. And one of the big things that was offered that we could do was Mexico. So we went to Mexico on these 1-day trips, which at the time you might think, man, how's this ever going to get us to Uganda? Because any trip itself, any part of the strategy. Any part of the strategy might be like 10 steps in that strategy. We had to figure everything out with Mexico. We had to get everything planned. We had to communicate it. We had to get people to sign up. So we had to get our students and parents to buy into that vision of going to Mexico on these one-day trips. We needed to charge money. We had to make sure the budget in the end worked out, because if we were upside down on the budget, that's not building trust, that's losing trust. So there were a lot of things that had to go right at that just one step in order to even get us to the next step. And you know what the next step was? Doing another one-day trip. We actually had a year where we did 4 one-day trips, and each one of them planned big. Each one of them executed well. Each one of them made budget perfectly. And we went through all these steps of Mexico, which a lot of people would say, man, that sounds like a goal in and of itself. Absolutely it is. But it wasn't the end strategy. This thing, we needed to do this to build the trust, to build the collateral, and to build the relationships. We needed to show that we were a trustworthy ministry, that we could handle going and taking these bigger steps. You know, the next year, we did more of the one-day trips. And then we added on to that our first ever overnight trip doing a home build. And so we went and we did a home build, and we were there for 3 days, and we were with our ministry partners. And again, it's relationship. It's the department seeing that you're capable of following through on what you said you were going to do. And the easiest thing you can do to lose trust is to not follow through on what you say you're going to do. So if we said, oh, we're going to do this trip, and then we don't get enough signups, and then we decide to cancel it last minute, or we do it, but we don't make budget, and everyone's, wondering where the money's going to come from. That's the easiest way to lose trust, to not follow through with what you say. So at every step, we had to make sure we were following through with what we said. We had to execute it well, and we had to make sure we were inviting the right families, getting great feedback, working alongside them. And it wasn't until that third year, once we built a whole lot of trust with that department, a whole lot of rapport with our global partners, that we were able to, with confidence, say, this is the year we're going to Uganda. Because then it wasn't just me saying it. We had staff and outreach who were saying, yeah, that's the right next step. Yeah, you should do. Oh man, look what you've done in these last 2 years, what you've accomplished, what you've built. Yeah, the next logical step is for you to go and engage the global world in another country. And then we planned this trip, and we selected the team, and we went to Uganda. And even like it was like a month before Uganda, and we didn't have all of our money raised. And I said, don't worry about it. We're going to raise the money. God's behind this vision. Like, it's going to work. And that didn't work for some people, my bosses. Some people were like, I don't know, maybe we should give people the option to opt out of the trip. Maybe we should cancel it. And I was like, no, we're not canceling anything. It's just that's the most insane thing I ever heard. And we didn't cancel anything, and we didn't give people a chance to opt out. And we raised 100% of our money before we even left for the trip, which was a huge deal. And we went, and the trip went flawlessly. And now it's just who we are. Kids are expecting it. We're starting signups for the next Uganda trip, more Mexico stuff this year. Global outreach in junior high at Mariners has become a huge part of who we are, who the culture is, who the identity is of our church, because now junior high ministry is reflecting the values that we as a church have. So as a church, we say global outreach is important. So I think the lesson here is this. Look, if you're at a church that has values and you're not on board with those values, chances are it's the wrong church for you. And if you want to find that out the painful, long way, or you just want to take my word for it, if you're not on board with the values of your church, it's not the right church for you. If you're on board with the values of your church, of course, you want the values of your church reflected in your ministry. And for me, I wanted the values of our church when it came to global outreach reflected in our ministry. And it took time for us to build the trust to allow us to incorporate those values into our ministry, because values are an important thing. I mean, if you take someone who treats those values poorly and degrades them, and it will hurt the values of the church, it will hurt who the church is. And that's not what we want to do. We want to advance the mission and the vision of our church by living out our values. So it took me time to build that trust. I did. If you're at a church that loves the values of your church, you want those incorporated in your ministry. And sometimes it takes a journey to get there. It's not all one straight line. It's this big wiggly road that you have to travel through, and that's okay if you're willing to put the work in for it. And a long-term strategy means putting the work in step by step.
So I guess it's too soon to really know, but you went on a trip last year to Uganda. I'm guessing there's another one this summer.
Yep. We're starting signups. It'll be in February, and signups are opening up, I think, in a month. So I won't even be on staff when they open up, which is great, which is the sign of a strategy well managed, because it's not relying on me for it to be successful. Kids are expecting it. Students are excited about when the next trip is. We only take 8th graders. So the 6th and 7th graders, they're excited to get into 8th grade because they want to apply for it. And I'm not going to be there, but I don't need to be there because it's a healthy strategy that doesn't rely on the leader to be there, to work to be pulled off.
And I imagine, so you had 8th graders that went last year. They're 9th graders now, or they just graduate 9th grade or whatever, and they're probably going on the Haiti trip or something. Like, it probably didn't negatively impact the high school trip, I'm guessing. You don't have a lot of years of data, but they're probably looking forward to it. No,
we don't have a lot of years of data, but I got something even better than data right now, which is my gut, okay? So my gut tells me that the culture of student ministry, the culture of a good student ministry, a good high school ministry, is built out of a great junior high ministry. So if you have a crappy culture in junior high, then all you're doing is sending kids off to high school that have no real identity, no real culture, no real passion for anything, and that's not setting up high school well. If you have a great culture in high school ministry, chances are it's because the junior high ministry has been sending you students who know what it means to be a part of something. So my gut tells me it'll be wildly successful in high school because we're sending them groups of students who've experienced the global world in a different way and have an expectation that they'll be able to keep doing it. And they don't have the mindset that where you go defines the value of the trip. That the value of the trip is defined by the relationships you make, not the stamp on your passport. And if we can send junior high students to high school ministry having that global perspective, it's going to change the world, and it'll definitely change your high school ministry.
Definitely. How about, let's talk about the partnering with parents piece that you mentioned as one of the foundations of a successful junior high ministry. What does that look like for you? How did you carry that out at Mariners? You're probably going to do a similar thing at Sandals, depending on what's in place there.
Very similar. We've already been talking about it a little bit. Again, I'm a really simple guy. Like I'm wearing a black T-shirt right now. I'm as simple as they get. I'm not complex. And maybe I'm not even that innovative, which I'm totally fine with that. I like to be. I'd rather be effective than be innovative for the sake of innovation, for the sake of saying, hey, look at this new shiny thing. I drive an old truck. Like, it works. Like, I'm that guy. So when it comes to parent ministry, I'm very, very simple. I believe in 3 things. They're very, very easy. I believe in communicating with parents often and in a manner that they can predict. So I send a weekly email to parents every single week, with information in there, with dates in there, with prices in there, with times in there, with a little thought, from me or from a blog or something. And I look at parents and I say, at least for Mariners, every Friday this email comes out, expect it, look forward to it, share it with your friends. Every Friday the email comes out. And it's important because I need to communicate with parents regularly. I need them to expect that it's happening. And if it doesn't happen, I need them to say, hey, where was it? What happened? What's going on here? Like, they should expect that the junior high ministry at their church will follow through on the things they say. I was just in a situation, I'm leaving staff, so I'm only here for a couple more days, and I'm in this situation right now that I'll be gone, so I'm totally going to talk about it. So we have an event planned next Wednesday called a NOF night, and it's also during the week of VBS. Now, VBS at Mariners is completely over the top, and it's like it takes over every inch of the campus. It's a really big deal, and it should be. I like kids. My kids will do VBS. I'm not anti-VBS, so don't hear that. But they take over the whole campus. Well, we have an event Wednesday night. Our kids jump up to junior high this weekend. I'm not going to be there, obviously. They jump to junior high, and this Wednesday event is their first Wednesday event. Well, someone just emailed and said, hey, you can't do the Wednesday event because the campus is closed and blah, 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 the whole thing. And so my staff, who they still report to me, are asking me, like, what should we do? Should we cancel it? And I was like, here's the thing. You just can't cancel it. If you've already communicated it, you just can't cancel it. Like, unless there's something so gargantuan that's like the reason why you have to cancel it, you can't just cancel it. Because all that does is tell parents that you say things or you put things in print or you put things on the website and you can't be counted on. That you'll just cancel it. Last minute with a week's notice, you'll cancel it or whatever. And you can't cancel things in a small way in junior high because kids aren't driving themselves. So you really have to communicate that to parents. So you have to over the top communicate that you're canceling something, which kills the reputation and the trust you have when parents want to have a ministry that they can count on, that they can trust, that they know is going to do what they say. So I told my staff, like, you just can't cancel it. We got to figure out a solution. And they did. They found a solution because my staff is the best. And, they're just so incredible. And they found a solution so they didn't have to cancel it. Because when it comes to parents, communicating clearly and keeping your word and sticking to what you say is paramount, because your ministry is not the only thing on their calendar. They have sports, their kids have practices, they have, recitals to go to, and they have their own friends to hang out with. They have school stuff to do. Like, they have other things in the ministry calendar. So don't change the ministry calendar once it's been communicated. That's number one. Number two, make time for parents. That's a big thing to me. We do this thing at Mariners called Coffee with a Junior High Pastor. I started it when I took over junior high. Hopefully the next person continues it when they take over. It's a day a month that you just sit in the cafe. We have a cafe at our church, so it's kind of rigged. But when I worked at a church before this, I did it at the church I was at before this. I did it at a local Starbucks. And you just tell parents, this is where I'm going to be. I'm going to be there from 9 to 5, and I'm available. It doesn't cost you a penny. And if you want to talk to me, have FaceTime with me, talk about an issue that's happening at home, get some advice, let me pray for you, whatever. Something happened you didn't like or you're confused by or whatever, come talk to me. This is where I am one day out of the month, every month. So I did it the first Thursday of every month, and it was easy. It cost no money. All it cost was time, but it was the best time investment that I made. When it comes to investing in parents, you're never going to go wrong investing a little bit of time into parents. And the third thing was parent nights. I really believe in parent nights, offering some kind of, and we aligned it with our youth ministry. So the youth ministry would do like a big worship night upstairs, and downstairs we would have this big parent night. And we bring in someone to talk about technology, or one of the staff members would do it. Or we'd bring in someone to talk about how to get your kid into college. Or we'd bring in someone to talk about, suicide and self-harm. It's just hot, 13 reasons, really put it in the forefront. And we bring in a guy to talk about crisis and how to counsel your kid and what to look for. We bring people in to offer them, and it doesn't have to necessarily be Christian. Maybe it's through a Christian worldview, and I have no problem with that. But it's the thing, like, I believe in like this parent evangelism piece where they can turn to their friend and say, hey, do you know, and this friend doesn't have to go to church at all. Hey, do you know all the apps that your kids are using? No, I have no idea about the apps. Oh, well, you should come to this thing at my church. They're just doing this whole thing about the apps they're using, not telling parents, hey, well, if Jesus had a cell phone, this is probably what he would. That's not what we're. Here's the information. This is an app called Snapchat. This is what it does. Here are the features. Here's an app called Tinder. You should probably watch out for it. This is what it looks like. Here's an app that they use to hide other apps. Be aware. Remember, they're not the kids' cell phones. They're your cell phones. Like, they're young. We're teaching them good, disciplines, good practices. Just give them lessons that are practical for parents. And it doesn't have to cost any money. So, we sometimes brought in like bigger name people, but you don't have to do that. You can get the person from the local school. You can get someone at the church who knows what they're talking about. You can get a video and then just do some Q&A. There's ways to do parent nights that allow parents to be equipped and informed. You can do it at a low cost. It's vital. I'm a big fan of it. And I'd probably throw in a last thing. And this thing I've been talking about because I'm going to this new church now. And one of the first questions I asked was, how do I get business cards? And it just reminded me of just the insight. I've shared it with my staff for years, that a business next to the Bible, which is the best resource you can have for doing ministry, the business card is the second best resource you can have for doing youth ministry. To be able to talk to a parent, and every parent you talk to, hand them your card and say, hey, if you want to talk some more, email me. Let's get together for coffee. Let's get together for lunch. I'd love to hear more. Every parent you talk to, you give them this little ticket into relationship, into being known. And that's a huge deal. I like inviting myself over for dinner. So I'll look at a parent and I'll just say, hey, I'd love to come over to your house for dinner sometime. I'd love to get to know you, get to know your family. Here's my card. Email me. Let me know some dates that can work. I love doing that, and I love doing it because it's not expected. Most people don't expect the youth pastor or youth worker to say that. when we do the unexpected, we connect with parents differently than a coach would, or, an art teacher would, or, the school teacher would. Most of those people aren't offering to come over for dinner. When the youth worker makes that offer, it puts us in a different category. It lets them know that we're not just serving your kid. We want to be part of your family ministry, the ministry that's happening in your home. I want to pray for your home before I leave, and I want to give a blessing before I go. And that communicates something different, and the role that we have as youth workers to the relationship to the parent. And that's a really good thing. It's a really positive, healthy thing.
That's great. So I would love to know, how often did you do the parent nights? Like in a typical year, do you do 2? Do you do 4?
Typical year, we did like 4 to 6. Whenever we scheduled to have all the students for life groups. Now, this is specific to our strategy of running junior high ministry. Whenever we would plan to have all the kids on campus, so either we'd have them all on campus for a big worship night, we'd have them all on campus for like a Wednesday event, we'd have everyone on campus for a big like end of the year party or something. Whenever we had all the students on campus on a Wednesday night, we brought all the life groups in from all the locations. We would also have a parent night that night, so that parents, all they had to do was drive their kids, because junior highers don't drive themselves, drive their kids to church, drop their kids off, and all they have to do is park their car, get out of the car, and they can come downstairs, have some coffee, have some cookies, and learn some stuff. And that was the strategy. Like, that was the whole implementation of that idea. Whenever we have the students on campus as a big group, we also have a parent night to partner with that, so that they can do date nights other nights. This is a night where they can just drop their kid off and then easily walk downstairs and get a night of learning and training. And that's how we did it.
That's great. And when you talked about making time for parents, you personally connecting, giving out business cards, all that kind of stuff, I would just love to know generally, like in a month, how many parents do you think you got to connect with that intentional strategy?
So here's the thing that's unique to me. When I took over junior high, I looked at the staff I had, which is, by the way, a completely different staff than I have now. But the staff I had at the time, I looked at them, and I probably did it like every year, because you get new people come, people go. And I looked at them and I said, here's the thing that you guys got to know, just so we're all on the same page, just to make sure we're all on the same page. When it comes to the weekends, I will never be in the building on the weekends. I will always be at the front of the patio. That's where I'll always be. So the way our church is set up, we have a student center, and there's a patio where students walk in to go into the junior high area. And I tell my staff, I will always be at the front of the patio, because I want to give every kid a high five. I want to give every kid a how you doing, how was your week. I want to see every parent as they're walking by, heading into church. That's my role. So my role as the junior high pastor is to be out in front, greeting kids, greeting parents. So I'm going to trust you guys are running everything inside, and we'll debrief how it goes, but I'm going to trust you that you're handling it, because I'm not going to be in there to do decisions. I'm going to trust you. And at first it was a little rocky, but we did it. And if you don't have a staff, which the majority of churches don't have staffs, it doesn't matter. You look at your volunteer team and say, hey guys, I bring the most value to the ministry when I'm out in front high-fiving every kid and talking to every parent. And you bring the most value to the ministry where you know every kid's name, or you know your 7 or 10 kids' names. That's where you bring the most value to the ministry. So I'm going to do what I bring the most value to the ministry for, which is being out there, high-fiving every kid. I'm not going to know all their names, and that's okay. High-fiving every kid, greeting parents. If they stop me or say something, or if I stop them, and I'm just handing them business cards. So the number is really high, but it's high because I position myself to be in a place that gave me the biggest opportunity to have those kinds of interactions. So if the desire of the youth worker, youth pastor is, well, I want to have interactions like that. Like, I want to be the youth pastor, youth worker who sees parents and gives them my card and has that, quick, I want to do dinner, or how are things going, or you should email me. Well, then you need to ask yourself, how are you positioning yourself physically to have those moments? And if it's like, oh, well, I'm not really doing that, I'm always inside playing basketball with the kids, then that's great. I love playing basketball with the kids, and I do it as much as I can. But the biggest value I bring to the ministry is not me playing basketball with the kids. The biggest value a volunteer brings to the ministry is the volunteer playing basketball with the kids. The biggest value I bring to the ministry is making sure every parent knows who their kid's pastor is. And if a parent has a question, who to go to. And at Mariners Church, they knew who to go to. The tattooed guy with the bald head and the beard, That's my kid's youth pastor. That's who I go to. But it's because I physically positioned myself to make sure I was visible and present where parents were. And that's an important thing.
That's awesome. Last question, at least about that. When
Sure.
you said you sent a weekly email for that was part of your communicating often. Was there anything else, social media, text plan wise, that was part of your regular communication?
I won't lie. We did text for a while, and like we have a whole thing for text for parents, and we filled it up. And the easiest way to fill up a parent text thing, by the way, is around camp or event time. Whenever you're taking students off campus, you say, hey, text this number because that's what we're going to text to let you know when we're heading back from camp. And so immediately you get, 400 people who are texting because they want to know when they're getting back. And most of the times they don't opt out of those texts. So you have a big pool of texts, but honestly, we never really used them effectively. Like it wasn't part of our rhythm to send like a weekly encouragement, although we could have. It wasn't part of our rhythm to communicate information through the text, although we could have. We just never did. Social media is the same thing. We had the Instagram handle Parent Ministry for a while, and honestly, we just never really used it that much. Like we never used it to post parent specific things. We just got a lot more traction from our emails. We looked at the amount of likes or comments photos we're getting, and then we looked at the amount of opens and clicks our emails were getting, and we realized that emails was the better thing to invest in. So we just started to continue to invest in the emails, and that's what we did.
Cool. So I know you recently launched a podcast that I've listened to that I want to make sure you tell everybody else about, but also tell people how they can connect with you, if they have a question or on social media, or certainly to listen to the podcast. Yeah.
So a couple things. About like 4 months ago, I launched a podcast called the Controlled Chaos Podcast. It's a junior high ministry podcast for youth workers, but there's a lot of other people who listen to it. Kids people listen to it, and high school people listen to it, but we have a lot of junior high people who listen to it. And I do a bunch of episodes with Kurt Johnston. Kurt and I did a revised and expanded version of his book called Controlled Chaos that's coming out in October, and we're really excited for that. It's being released right in collaboration with the middle school ministry conference that happens with the Youth Cartel. And we're just pumped about it. More episodes are coming. I'm sitting down with Patrick Lencioni in a couple weeks to interview him for the podcast. Clay Scroggins we're going to do an interview with. There's just some really good another episode with Marco Oestreicher, more episodes with Kurt. Sitting down with Kara Powell, talk Fuller Youth Institute stuff. So there's some really cool things that are coming down the pipe that I just think youth workers are going to benefit from. I looked at the podcast thing because I was looking for a junior high ministry one, and I just didn't find any. I didn't find any junior. There's a lot of great youth ministry, a lot of great student ministry, but just you get like week to week. If you're a youth ministry person or a junior high person, and you just want every week to get junior high ministry content, it was really hard to find. And so I started one, and it's gotten some traction. It's been really fun. The book's coming out. We're going to launch some other stuff, under kind of that Controlled Chaos banner, for junior high youth workers soon. And we're working with some great organizations to partner up to really put it out there to benefit junior high youth workers. I'm excited about that. So go check out the podcast. Put a link to the podcast for sure. It's everywhere, and on YouTube, it's everywhere. If you want to connect with me, man, I'm really easy to get a hold of. Just give me a call or text me. I'll give you my cell phone number, 714-600-0354. If you have questions about what we talked about, or you want to go into more detail, honestly, calling me will get you nowhere. But if you text me and say, hey, I heard you on the podcast and I'd love to ask you some questions, I'll make time for you. I totally will. Because leaders need to be accessible. I learned that from Josh Griffin. I met him at a conference, and I was asking him questions afterwards. Like I was the guy that kind of waited in line afterwards to meet him and talk to him. And I told him I was in Southern California where he was. He was at Saddleback at the time. And he's like, here's my cell phone number. Give me a call. Let's get together. And I was like, oh, really? Are you sure? Because like there's mysticism of, how reachable or how much access you have to certain leaders. And I just never believed in that. So, if Bob Goff can put his cell phone number in a book, I can put my cell phone number on a podcast. So that's the easiest way. And there's social media, Hey Justin Herman on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and stuff. But if you really have questions, you want to talk junior high ministry, high school ministry, whatever, just text me and we can set up time.
That's awesome, man. Well, congrats on the launch of the podcast. It does seem like it's growing rapidly and having some success. I saw you had like a pin that you already made. Is that what I saw? Getting some swag.
Yeah, so here's the thing. I just really junior high people like getting free stuff. I mean, junior high people like getting free stuff. So we partnered with a great swag company called Church Swag, churchswag.org, not .com. The .com guy, he's not the guy. The .org guy is the guy. Okay, it's a very important differentiation to make. churchswag.org.
It's hilarious.
And we partnered with him, and he gave us a box of T-shirts and a thing of pins that we could give away, and we've been giving away, and youth workers love it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man, Chaos Nation, dude. You can join and be a part of Chaos Nation with a nation of youth workers out there that want to get better. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, and you'll get a pin and a shirt, maybe. Who knows? What else?
Very easily do that. Well, the book's coming out soon. We're going to give away a lot of books, and I can't go into great detail, but once some of the partnerships we're forming with some of these great organizations come out, it's just going to make life even better for junior high youth workers. And it's so funny because I'm going into a role where I oversee junior high and high school. So a lot of people, even when I was interviewing, it was like, well, are you going to be able to, really carry the weight and the vision of a high school ministry? And here's the thing. High school ministry is not, this insanely complex thing. It just isn't. High school ministry, a great high school ministry knows how to answer this question. A kid is asking, do I like you? Are you real? Can I take you, serious? And we have to be able to answer them in a high school ministry that, yeah, I'm real and you can take me serious and I'm authentic and I'm going to be myself and you be yourself and you belong here. Building off all the great things that happen in the junior high ministry. So if you're a high school person and you have a really difficult junior high ministry, that's a tough deal for you. If you're a high school pastor and you have a great junior high ministry, but because of your own pride, your own arrogance, you're not willing to build off what they did because you want to be the one to build the empire, because you want to be the one to say, look what I've done, then you're full of pride, and so is Satan, and he was kicked out of heaven. They should probably kick you out of the church. Because I'm telling you, if you're not building off what the junior high guy did, you're leaving a lot of chips on the table. For what? For what reason? So we can say we did it ourselves. I'm so thankful that Jesus didn't teach the disciples to say, you do this so that you can say you did it yourself. I'm so happy that Jesus taught the disciples to say, do this in remembrance of me. Do this because I love you. Let people know, spread the word that I sacrificed myself for them for their sins. I'm so happy that he didn't train his disciples to say, accomplish it for you and build your own empire and let everyone know how great you are and don't rely on other people. Don't build off what other people do. Only build things for yourself. But I think there's this poison in youth ministry, especially at churches that have a junior high and a high school guy. It's just if they don't get along, there's a poison there that needs to be cured. And sometimes it needs to be cured by people, being shown the door. And that's maybe a harsh thing to say, but here's the thing. Time is limited. If Greg Steer was on here, he would tell you time is limited. Kids need to hear the gospel. And if we're letting ourselves get in the way of students hearing the gospel of Jesus on their campus because we're not willing to, in humility, say, how can we build off what we did, that you had these kids for 3 years, 3 very pivotal years. How can I build off that for the health of my ministry and still making it my own, making it, relevant for high school, but build off what you did, not just blow up what you did and start from scratch. If we don't have the willingness and the humility to say that, then we're missing the point of the need that students need to hear the gospel of Jesus in a life transforming way. And we need to get to that work, not the shenanigans, not the goofball stuff.
I fired you up here at the end. It's like a bonus. Like a soapbox. Yeah,
maybe it's just like because I think it's something that I've dealt with or I've heard for years, and I've heard from other youth workers that have tension with their high school ministry, and I know I've had tension here with the high school ministry at times, and a lot of that's been cured, and some of those things we've kind of just put under the rug, to be honest with you, and it hasn't been healthy. It's been really bad. But now stepping into a role where I'm going to kind of hold both of those, it's just this constant reminder that we're gifted as youth workers. And yes, for a season, I was focused in junior high, or for someone there, for a season, they're focused in junior high or high school, but we're called to be great youth workers. And if you really want to be a great youth worker, you're looking at the whole 7 years. You're not just looking at 4 years or 3 years or, 2 years if you do 7th and 8th grade. If you really want to be a talented youth worker, you're looking with the 7 years in mind. Now, your focus may be 2-3 years or the 4 years in high school, but you have vision for the 7 years. And if you can't have vision for the 7 years, one of those ministries, if not both of them, will always struggle if you're in one of those specific seats, junior high or high school, without that 7-year view. So I've always tried to have the 7-year view. Now I'm going to be in a role where I'm able to strategize and implement within the lens of the 7-year view. But I see youth workers all the time that are just so so focused in with blinders on for their own little phase, and it causes a lot of unhealth where there could be thriving health if we did things in collaboration.
Well, you picked the right podcast to talk about that, because I hope people listen to this podcast. The reason I call it the Family Ministry Podcast is because it encompasses all ages. So I hope people listen here think about like the 20-year view. You know what I mean? Like the 3-year if they're in middle school, but in the 7-year of student ministry, and in the 20 years of a kid growing up into adulthood. You know what I mean? And looking at it all together as one big picture.
Yeah. It's just so crazy. I was talking to someone the other day about it, and it's like, in junior high, you get, 3 years. In high school, you get 4. You add in kids ministry, which you're doing, like that's the family ministry, right? It's like 18 years. But the reality is that when they graduate high school, the senior pastor at the church, he has like 60 years, 50 years with these people to implement his goals. Like he has them in the room from 18 to death to implement his goals. We have from 6th to 8th grade, or from 9th to 12th, or from age 0 to age 18. If you're in youth ministry, student ministry, family ministry, and you don't have that big lens view, for whatever reason, you're just leaving so many chips on the table because your time is so limited, and limited time is valuable time when it comes. Jesus picked 12 guys, spent 3 years teaching the most important stuff because he knew he was leaving. We only have a certain amount of time. We have to leverage every bit we have. And man, if the comparison game or the frustration of budgets or the churchy politics stuff, if that stuff gets in the way of us accomplishing the most important goals we have, for the limited time we have to have the courage to make changes to put us in a position for success, knowing that after age 18, that's the game plan. That's it. We don't want them graduating church. We want them moving to what's next. And that's not done on accident. That's done through a strategy. That's awesome. Well, I'm glad we got to talk a little bit extra here after I thought we were wrapping up, because I got you fired up, and that's good stuff. And we are definitely on the same page about that. I believe in a ministry that works together. And like you said, I just believe one ministry should be the foundation for the next. And some, you know what I mean? Some of the best healthy ministries are ones that have a good healthy ministry feeding into it, which is a great thing. Absolutely. Well, thanks for taking this time to do this. Thanks for starting that podcast for middle school youth workers. I think that's awesome. And I'm excited to see what's to come, some of the partnerships and announcements, and maybe more swag. Who knows? Maybe more swag. Definitely more swag. Thanks a lot, man. Thanks, Justin. Well, there you go. That was a lot of fun. Justin is a lot of fun. I love how passionate he is about, junior high ministry, student ministry, and really ministry overall, and doing it well. That certainly came out in the interview, but especially there at the end. And he clearly has a lot of wisdom to share. And again, I said, in the intro that I feel like a lot of what he shared applies to every ministry. So maybe you listened and you don't serve a middle school ministry, but hopefully you were able to take some things away that'd be helpful for you. Here's some action items I thought about coming out of that interview. One would be to take the 3 things that he talked about as part of a great, successful dynamic in middle school and grade them for your ministry. So is your ministry fun? What are the leaders like in your ministry? Do you need more and better leaders? And who doesn't? But again, between fun, leaders, and that third thing, parents, grade them. Which one are you the best at? Which one are you the second best at, third best at? And sometimes you might want to say, well, we're third best here, so let's improve that. That might be fine. Or your approach might be, you know what, we're really good at this one. Let's just maximize that and be really good at the thing we're already best at. I think that's a great approach. And then take action. Think of some ideas, some steps you can take to either improve that third one or maximize that first one, and take action on it. Another thing you might want to think about is that strategy conversation we had. What long-term strategy do you need to develop? What's going to take some time and some patience to implement? And maybe you start working on that now, and maybe even map it out and think about it the way Justin thought about launching that global outreach strategy. And then with parent ministry, we always want to do a better job reaching, connecting with parents. He talked about the 3 pillars. And for me, the thing that stood out is making time for parents one-on-one. You know what I mean? Like connecting relationally. He's out front. He's meeting them.
I feel like that's something I definitely want to do, and I can always improve on. So maybe that's not for you. Maybe that's not the thing you're taking away. You're going to take away parent nights, or you're going to improve your communication or something like that. But what's one step you can take to improve your connection with parents? You can get all the notes and links and everything from our conversation at nickblevins.com/episode 109. As I mentioned in the intro, the Volunteer Playbook group for summer is going to launch here in a week, less than a week actually. So registration closes Monday, July 2nd at midnight if you're listening to this when it releases. And if you're interested in the group, go ahead and check it out. It's volunteerplaybook.com. And stay tuned because I've got some great, exciting news of things that we're going to launch here shortly, similar to Volunteer Playbook Group, just to help leaders out heading into the fall and even actually something in August. So stay tuned. We'll announce that soon. I'm really excited about it. We're working behind the scenes, and I can't wait to share it with you. But until then, hope you have a great week. I hope this episode really helps you lead in your ministry better, and I hope it'll help you work on your ministry this week, not just in it on Sundays or Sunday nights or Wednesday nights or whenever your primary ministry gatherings take place. So until next time, hope you have a great week.
Thanks for listening to the Nick Blevins Family Ministry Podcast. We hope this helps you maximize your church's potential. We would love to hear stories of how you apply what you've learned. You can do that by leaving a comment on iTunes or in the show notes at nickblevins.com.